Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is games leaving the collection for October. These are all the games that are slowly moving out of my collection. I do these videos every single month, trying to find games, intentionally find games. Some games don't work for me. Other times it's that I'm always getting new games, and some games have to go. The sad reality is that we only have a limited amount of time to play games, and that means if I get more games, unless I get more time, something else has to go, which is a regular reminder, recurring reminder for the series, that just because I'm getting rid of a game does not mean it's a bad game. More than that, it doesn't even mean that I didn't like the game. I will tell you whether I like the game or not, but many games are games that I enjoy, that I like, that I want to play more, but I have to pick and choose where my time goes, so even great games, unfortunately, do have to go. Now, before we get into this list, this video is sponsored by Gamefound. And if you head on over to Gamefound, you can find Lords of Ragnarok currently being crowdfunded. This is the spiritual successor to Lords of Hellas, an area control 1 to 4 player game where you can play as Ragnar, Aslog, any of dozens of heroes, fighting against a variety of monsters with highly detailed miniatures, a gorgeous sun drop if you want those as well. If you back now, you can get the free expansion, the Valkyrie hero, and any unlocked stretch goals. The campaign started October 21st, and the crowdfunding will end on November 11th. Now, going from there, starting off with which game? Let's start off with the gimmies. There are a few gimmies over here. I do have 10 games this episode, but some of them are cheating, because I do try to cheat in these videos so that I can pretend that I'm getting rid of games, even if I'm actually not. You see, all those things I said about liking games, that's true. And to that end, I often lie to myself to try to keep those games, even though I should be getting rid of them. So starting off with Isofarian Guard, which, to be very clear, this is not leaving the collection. This is just temporarily going away. Isofarian Guard is a game that I did not back this one. This is one that was brought to me by Sky Kingdom Games. They brought it to me, they showed it to myself, to Quackalope, gave us an overview, dumped us into the story, and then we just started playing through it. Now, I have only been, well, only is a relative term, I'm somewhere around 5 or 6 hours into the experience, but from there, unfortunately, they need the copy back. I put up a first impressions video recently, and so I do have to send them this pre-production copy back, but I will be diving back into this one when I get the full final game, full final production, everything of the game. There's tons of content for this game. I do not imagine that I will ever go through the 80 to 100 hours of content there is in this experience, but I certainly want to go further than I have so far. I want to explore more the bag building, the exploration, all the stuff, the combat, the leveling up my heroes, the trying different hero combos, all those things in the game. I've really been enjoying my experience so far. It's heavy narrative, heavy narrative. It has a 4-tile app, gives you all that stuff, and then it's, also combat, meaningful combat. I was pleasantly surprised by how many decisions and choices there are to be made in the combat. I thought the primary choices would come from actually building out your bag, and then combat would just be seeing how things played out. When you deck build, sometimes the choices are what goes into your deck, and then once cards come out, it is what it is. That's not the case in the combat for the Isofarian Guard. Really been enjoying this one. I don't even know if I'll include it in the timestamps down below, because if I just include it in the timestamps, I did this once before with another game, and I just put it in the timestamps, I'm like, I can't believe you're getting rid of that game. I'm not getting rid of Isofarian Guard. It's temporarily saying goodbye. And then next up, we'll go with 2 games I haven't played. Generally, in these videos, I try not to pick too many games I haven't played for 2 reasons. One is because I like to play the games I actually get. I do want to play them. There's a reason I add them to my collection, and so I do want to play them. Sometimes, though, things do change, and this video does have 2 games that are unfortunately leaving my collection, despite not having had a chance to dive into them. The first of which is going to be Funkoverse. More specifically, all this Funkoverse over here is leaving my collection. And to be fair to myself, this is one that I got not just because I was semi-interested in the game, but also because my kids like the little bubble pop miniatures. In fact, what I'm probably doing is I may not even be getting rid of these in terms of actually getting rid of them. I may just be handing my kids the miniatures and saying, you can go ahead and enjoy them, but they're leaving my collection. I'm no longer treating this as a game that I will actually hope to play one day. It is a skirmish game. It's a skirmish game with powers, with abilities, with characters, but the actual gameplay mechanics don't call to me enough. Skirmish games are always a tricky one, where sometimes I really like them. Sometimes I really enjoy certain skirmish games. Other times, it just ends up being devolving into me hitting you, you hitting me, and someone rolls better and does whatever and ends up winning. Sometimes those are still fun. Bloodstone, which is a great example. Bloodstone is a Kickstarter game that canceled. It'll be coming back to Kickstarter. It's mostly about rolling dice and hitting each other, but I really like just how much you roll dice and smash each other in the face. So that one's fun, despite the fact that is a lot more luck than there is strategy. There's strategy, but more luck than strategy. But something about Funkoverse doesn't call to me enough. I've watched several gameplays of it. It doesn't seem appealing. Maybe it's amazing. If I'm wrong, by all means tell me. Sometimes, not always, sometimes when I do these videos, if I have enough people telling me how how many mistakes I'm making with my life choices in general, sometimes I do reevaluate those life choices. We're here to learn, not just to get rid of games. But that's Funkoverse. And speaking of where I actually do want your input, this is one where I am 100% going to keep this game if I get enough pushback. And that's Clockwork Wars. Clockwork Wars is an area control game that I never really heard that much about as far as general buzz of this game. But it's one that I've heard just enough positivity that I did pick it up at one point, specifically because of the comments here, by the way. I can't even remember which video it was. It was a long time ago, but there was a specific video I did on this channel where because of that video, I went ahead and grabbed Clockwork Wars. I went ahead and added this one to my collection, and it's one that I haven't played. Haven't read the rules, haven't done anything to dive into this one. It's one where I hope that it's a great experience, but I haven't been pulled in enough to actually dive into it. So overall, while being intrigued by Clockwork Wars, it's not one that I'm currently playing, and so that's where I want your input, your feedback. If you have played this game and you think it's an amazing experience and I absolutely should be giving it a try, I will. Sure, I'll try to. I can't guarantee I will, but I'll try. Maybe I'll get a second chance, a second life on my shelf over here. But barring that, it's not one that I think will stay. Unless it has like a decent swell of support, I don't know. I was never pulled in by it. I got it because of a recommendation. I never played it, and I haven't been incentivized to play it. There are so many other games on my shelf I'd rather play before this one. And so despite getting it, I think it was a mistake to grab a game that I wasn't personally intrigued by, and was only doing it based on recommendations. Recommendations are always a tricky one. And sometimes I'll grab a game based on recommendations if it's somebody that I know, if it's somebody that I, like, in real life, or even not in real life, someone on the internet. But if I know that their opinion reflects mine, a recommendation matters more. This was just a random comment. That's not enough of a basis for me to have gotten it. It was a mistake to get my hands on it. I may or may not be rectifying that mistake now. Next up, we have a sort of gimme, which is Resistance Avalon. And to be clear, I love this game. Resistance Avalon is a game that's been in my collection for quite some time. I prefer this to the original Resistance. This is a hidden role game in which you're trying to accomplish your mission, if you're the goodies, the good guys, you want to go ahead and complete 3 quests. If you're the bad guys, you want to fail 3 quests. There's different powers and abilities of the various characters to give you more insight as to knowing what's happening during the night, because there is this whole, not really a night phase, but there's this whole aspect of some players are bad, but they know who each other are, and then there's good players, and there's Merlin. Merlin knows of the bad people, except he doesn't know who Mordak is. That gives you another degree of insight. Then there's Percival. Then there's all these different characters. Oberon. There's different characters who know what's going on. Percival knows who Merlin is, which gives us the good guys a little more insight. Oberon doesn't even know he's a bad guy, so there's all these different abilities and powers at play in the game. I really, really enjoy it. The reason I'm getting rid of it is because I now have Quest. Quest is the new version from Indie Boards and Cards from Stronghold Games. I think they're the same. I don't even know. I never really know that relationship. From Indie Boards and Cards, Quest is the new version, giving you both Quest, and if you backed it on Kickstarter with the big box version, which I most certainly did, then you also have all the components you need to play Resistance Avalon. Now, I'm enjoying Quest. I think I am more likely to play Quest more often than I play Avalon. First of all, it's playable at 4 players, which Avalon needs 5. And secondly, Quest is a little faster and punchier. It takes the gameplay of Avalon, it takes away a drop of the strategy. It does. It takes away a drop of the strategy, but in return gives you a game that's half as long and a drop more chaotic. So in terms of the pure gameplay, I think I prefer Avalon. In terms of play time to gameplay, meaning the ratio of how much of a game you get out of it, I think I prefer Quest. That tiny drop in strategy, but half the playtime, really makes Quest a better experience for me. But more importantly, it has all the components I need to play Avalon should I actually want to, with art that I like better. So this is really a gimme. It's another game that's leaving not because I don't like it, and it's a game I easily recommend, but it's a game that's leaving because I now have Quest instead. Next up, we have a few games that have been reviewed recently. Let's cover the reviews ones because those are always less of a surprise, and we'll save the surprises for the end, although timestamps as usual, so not much of a surprise there. Starting off with, actually, what did I review here? I think I only reviewed 2 games on this list, so 2 reviews here. First of all, we have Space Race. Space Race is a game from Boardcubator, and these boxes are just ridiculous. They're getting out of control. We're going to have to remove some of these boxes here. Space Race from Boardcubator, let's put them on their side, is a game from Boardcubator that involves the space race. You're building up a tableau of cards. You're activating different, as they're called, what are they called? I can't remember what they're called. The control cards, whatever they are, to activate your abilities, your rows, and to get more cards from the general space area, add them to your areas, add them to your hand, add them to your lab, all these different things you're trying to do to ultimately get as many points as possible in the game. It's one that I didn't enjoy. I put up a review on the channel. It's an experience that wasn't for me. I find this a genre of games where it's all about min-maxing tiny little incremental things, and unless I have those moments in a game where I feel like I'm doing something cool, I tend to not enjoy it. And sometimes those feeling like you're doing something cool is because you're doing something bigger. Meaning just the magnification of a thing can make it more fun. In fact, even Bloodstone, which we talked about earlier in this video already, is a game that reason I like it, despite being heavily about punching each other in the face, is because you can roll dice and do like 27 damage to someone. Now granted, they have 150 life, so you didn't really do that much damage, but the feeling of getting those giant swings, it feels like a fun moment, whether it was not because of strategy. Space Race is a game that does have a heavy amount of strategy, but the incremental gains you get in the game, like games like Imperium Legends before, which is a game that I also got rid of, they don't give me large swings of doing fun things. They give me minor increments of strategic benefit. So if you like the strategy, I think it's an easy game to recommend. For me, it's not one that I was incentivized to dive back into past my initial plays, because it was strategic, but it wasn't fun. Based on what's fun for me, at least. Next up, we have Rush MD, another game that I review on the channel that is leaving the collection. Rush MD is a solid real-time game from Artipia Games. This is their sequel, their spiritual successor to not Kingdom Rush. I almost said Kingdom Rush. That's Lucky Duck Games and entirely different games. Rush MD is a spiritual successor to Kitchen Rush. See the KR. It's like K Rush. Kingdom Rush, Kitchen Rush. It's all the same, but it's not the same. It's not remotely the same. Kitchen Rush from Artipia Games is a game that I played a long time ago, and I heard good things about Rush MD, and so I picked this one up. Despite the fact that, even though I've heard good things or whatnot, it was basically, and to be clear, I like Kitchen Rush, but I didn't love Kitchen Rush. Kitchen Rush left my collection because it ultimately devolved into being a real-time game where past the initial plays, I didn't have a lot of fun not a lot of fun. It was fine. It was totally fine. It was enjoyable, but it didn't give me those strategic highs. It was just enjoyable. And then we have Rush MD, which I liked more than Kitchen Rush, but still not enough to keep. In general, I find real-time games are enjoyable. I like them. But with few exceptions, Project Elite being one of the few exceptions, they rarely stay in my collection. They're usually fun, and I'm pulled in by them. But then, especially if they're an hour-long experience, it's different when they're shorter. Like games like Magic Maze actually last in my collection long enough to like finish all the content, and I actually just got back Magic Maze on Mars to dive back into that because I like the genre. So some real-time games I do enjoy more and want to go through it. Usually they have to be shorter. The longer a real-time game is, the more I question whether I would rather just be playing a full strategy game in that time slot instead, and that's the case with Rush MD. I enjoy this game. I'm always happy to play this one. I am not in a rush to keep it in my collection. And those are the games that I reviewed this past month, which means everything else from here on in is mostly a surprise, although let's start with another semi-gimme, which is MicroMacro Crime City. This is an easy recommendation. You should get this game. Also, these games are limited in the content they provide, and once you've gone through it all, there's not much else to do in this game. MicroMacro Crime City is Where's Waldo combined with an escape room. You're finding little patterns, but then you're trying to find what happened. You're going through a cityscape that shows things happening in real time. So you follow characters along a map to see what they've done. Oh no, this person went into the parlor over here, and that person was really, spying on that person with their telescope through the window, and you can see what they did. And then that person killed someone, and you can see why. Why did they kill someone? And you trace them back, and you're like, oh my gosh, that person really, pushed that guy over on a scooter, and you start to piece together these pieces of a puzzle in MicroMacro Crime City to see what happened. Again, it's basically an escape room combined with Where's Waldo. Thoroughly enjoyable experience, and I guarantee you, I'll be getting more of this content when they have, I know they have a MicroMacro 2 coming out or whatnot. I guarantee you I'll be getting my hands on that content as well to dive into it when that happens. But right now, we've gone through the cases, we've played through the game, and there's not much else to do past getting rid of it, of course. So, easily enjoy it, easily recommend it. It's one worth diving into and very unique in the experience it provides, but it inherently has limited content, which means it's great to try and then sell or trade or even just gift to someone else who wants to have the same experience. Moving on, we have Menara. Menara is a game that my children claim to love and never actually play it. I like Menara. I'm fine with it, but for me, it's just that. I like it and I'm fine with it. I am certainly not in love with Menara. I think it's a good experience. It's basically one of those games. What's that game? There's a game, I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's the original one of these, not original, the original one's probably Jenga, but there's another game which involves stacking blocks that someone in the comments knows. I guarantee you there's two people typing it right now. Oh, it's gonna bother me. Villa Paletti. Villa Paletti is a game that I still own and still have, and my kids frequently ask to play that one and enjoy the puzzle of stacking your different towers and having things fall down. Menara takes that gameplay and adds a cooperative element. We have to achieve certain things together before the tower falls. While in theory that works, the high of the game for my kids is the tower falling, and Villa Paletti is simpler and more accessible and easier to dive into from that sense, and so it ends up being the game that's played more. I think Menara is easily a better game. But for my kids' stance, Villainy is about a game, and Menara is not a game. Neither of these games are games that I want for my collection. Both of them are games that I would enjoy. Similar to Rush MD, I find Menara to be a fun experience, one that I'm always happy to play, but one that I will not ask to play. One that I am willing to play, but won't ask to play. And to that end, games that fall into that category only stay in my collection if others ask to play them. If others don't, then they don't stay, and the problem with Menara is it's been there for quite some time. It even left at one point, and my kids were like, no, get it back, we will play it. They don't play it. They don't play it at all. And so, unfortunately, this time it is going away for good, but this will have Villainy. I'm not a terrible father, I'm just a slightly bad one. Moving on, we have Margraves of Valeria. This is a hard one. In fact, the next two, this and the next one, are both very hard ones for me to get rid of. Both of these are games I rated a 4. This one and the next one. Margraves of Valeria is from the Valeria universe of games. This is not the same game as Card Kingdoms of Valeria or any of those games. This is its own entity. Margraves of Valeria. Really, really enjoy this one. I like this game a lot. It's a fun little game of trying to gather cards, go for different scoring objectives, build up your things, move your lord around the map, manage your troops, manage your units, defeat monsters in the middle. It's really well done in the overall execution of the game. A lot of things to juggle and puzzle and manage as you play through the game, and sadly this game does not get played enough. I really like, remember in the beginning of the video when I told you that there are games in this video that I don't want to get rid of but I have to make time for? This one and the next one are those two games. Margraves is delightful. I wish I had more games that I could keep, more time that I could play these games to play Margraves more. The problem is at the end of the day, while Margraves is incredibly good at what it's doing, I find that it's just messy enough in what it's doing that it doesn't hit the table as often. And the cards give you a lot of stuff to do, but some of the abilities are a little too samey, so that despite being a 4, despite being a game that I really enjoy and want to play, there are other games that I find do this marginally better. And with limited time, marginally better wins out. And so Margraves, really solid recommendation. I arguably like this better than Nope, I'm not gonna say that. I would say I like Margraves the same level that I like Card Kingdoms of Valeria, which those two are my favorite games in the Valeria universe. The difference is Card Kingdoms of Valeria is best in class in what it's doing. In terms of games where I just roll dice and collect stuff and have fun, I like Card Kingdoms better than I like Margraves. I like Card Kingdoms better than Equitable Games, better than Catan, better than Space Base, better than Machikoro. But as far as games that have a more of a heavy Euro genre as you go out, manage different scoring objectives, try to build things up, I think Margraves is very, very, very good, but I think there are better. And so sadly, this is one that is unfortunately, very unfortunately, leaving my collection. And then lastly on this list, we have another one, Valor and Villainy Minions of Mordak. And this one, I'm lying to myself again, I'll tell you why. So to begin with, Valor and Villainy Minions of Mordak is a game that I really enjoy. It's a game that involves a one versus many, you have spells and powers and all these things you're doing as one player's Mordak and the other players are, well, their own heroes, trying to take out Mordak, trying to take out their villains. The gameplay is incredibly fun. And I know that there have been complaints on the internet about Mordak being imbalanced and overpowered. In our case, we found Mordak has actually lost all the games. It's always been close. It's been very, very close. But Mordak has lost all of the games we've played with this. They've always been close, but Mordak has lost. So I don't know if we're playing wrong. It's entirely possible. If you've watched my playthroughs, I definitely play games wrong. But whatever we're doing, it's working to produce a balanced experience. Every game we've played has come down to the wire, down to the last who's going to win in this game, but then with the heroes winning and Mordak being like, so close, I should have done this or that or anything else to win, or maybe just rolled better. That's also a thing you can do in this game. But Valor and Villainy is a game that I enjoy the puzzle, I enjoy the powers and abilities, I enjoy the general gameplay of what's happening in the game, but again, it's not hitting the table as often as I'd like. I mentioned this in my review when I covered it back in the day. I said this is a great game, but it's also fairly long and not the kind of game I'm pulling out at game night, but also not the kind of game, it's a little too long for casual Saturday afternoon gaming, so it falls into this weird spot where it doesn't get played as much as I would like it to. Now, part of what makes this one actually easier to deal with, if I was ranking what's hard to get rid of, Margraves is harder for me to get rid of. The reason for that is because I still have Ludwig's Labyrinth coming. Basically, Valor and Villainy, if you don't already know, they have a new version called Ludwig's Labyrinth that is going to be giving you a solo/co-op experience, although you could still do one versus many, the same gameplay mechanics, but making it ideally a little shorter per each game, more powers and abilities, and making it cooperative, and also campaign legacy light driven, giving you more of a reason to dive in and try to finish it and get it out of the way. So I think Ludwig's Labyrinth has a bigger chance, a higher chance of getting played when it eventually arrives. Now, to be very clear and very fair, this is combinable. The two games are combinable. And with some games in my collection, if you say, hey, you can combine the old content with the new, then sometimes I want that, because sometimes I love a game enough that I absolutely need all the content. I don't think that my love and appreciation for Valor and Villainy is high enough that I need to keep everything for it just so I can combine and experience it more. I want to play Ludwig's Labyrinth. I want to go through some of the campaign and see how far it takes me and see what ways the story involves or the things I can do along the way. And I like the general map structure and the way that works far better in Ludwig's Labyrinth, where it feels like a labyrinth. It feels like you're wandering around, as opposed to Valor and Villainy, which just feels like you're walking around as opposed to navigating through a labyrinth. And so overall, I am more intrigued by Ludwig's Labyrinth, not enough to combine with Minions of Mordak, but enough to give that one a shot when it shows up. And that is everything. These are the 10 games, 9-ish really, because Isofarian Guard is purely just lying. I'm not getting rid of Isofarian Guard at all. Past that, the other 9, with whatever caveats there are still leaving the collection. And so those are the games that this month are leaving the collection. Again, some solid picks overall. Like I said already, we have some games that I didn't play. We have Rush MD and Menara that are really solid. We have Space Space that I think is a good game, but not the kind of experience I like. And then we have Margraves of Valeria and Minions of Mordak that are really solid games that I am very sad to see go. And then lastly, we have Avalon and MicroMacro. Avalon's being replaced by Quest, and MicroMacro, I've gone through the content, and so I'm fine moving on from it and getting the next one when it eventually shows up. Until next time, I am Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video. Next month's still going to be brutal. Every single month these days, it's just getting hard. There's just too many good games. It's getting harder and harder to get rid of games. I keep saying that, and it keeps remaining true. I have 1 or 2 games in the back of my head that I'm saving for when I really don't have anything else to get rid of, but until then, I'm going to desperately hold on to them, hoping that I can justify keeping them. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., which I said already, but it's okay, I'll repeat it. And as always, have a good one.